So I did this video back in 2019 about the old internet, more particularly forums and the decentralized internet. That being the one where most people had their own personal websites and they would communicate to one another either through these more centralized chat messaging applications such as AIM or Yahoo Instant Messenger, or more often than not, through decentralized forms, individual forms based on a specific topic, a specific range of topics, a broader theme, and so on. There were many, many of these forms that existed throughout the internet, and the same was the case with the many different websites that individuals would host themselves, or sometimes through things like GeoCities and Angelfire. Those two broad conglomerates, let's just call them, that organized these different websites under this same banner was one of, I would say, the beginnings of centralization on the internet. This is sort of where it started. Of course, forums were centralized in the sense that there were many different topics that could be discussed on them, and they centralized people into that one place, but they were decentralized in the sense that there were many of them and you had to go to different ones for different things. And in general, the system at the time, or the way that the internet was broadly distributed all over the place, created a situation where people would go to many different forums to discuss many different things. And I would argue that GeoCities and Angelfire began centralizing the internet in the way that we see it now, where rather than having your own individual website hosted on these services with everyone's looking kind of similar, we just have everyone's individual page on a social media site looking exactly the same. And so that, to me, is the logical evolution of the situation we had on GeoCities and Angelfire. Now it has gotten more stripped down, more simple, more efficient, and applies to many more people, reaches many more people, and as a consequence, many more people are visiting these websites. So many that it has drowned out the other competitors because the internet has gotten bigger, but in terms of how we use it, a lot smaller, simply due to the more efficient nature of these websites. But that efficiency has, as I attempted to point out in that video, stripped away much of the soul from the internet. It has made us less creative. It has made us more partisan, as I give the example of the free thinkers on some of those old forums to what they've become now, which is total partisan hacks, listening to a few influencers who spout and toe a partisan line. That's the situation that we're in now. Now, with centralization of the websites that we go to, we also have centralization of thought. And this is part of the reason why I think NeoCities is kind of a lost cause. Now, what do I mean by that? NeoCities is just a straight copy of GeoCities. It's the same hosting, like you make the same type of websites on there. And if you look on there, it's kind of like a centralized form on which people build their old style looking websites. So rather than everyone having their personal sites hosted by themselves and with their own creative touches added to it, everyone hosts their personal sites that are also just meant to look like 90s websites on this one centralized platform which is meant to look like GeoCities, which was already a centralized platform, except it was less centralized than what evolved from that, which is Twitter and Facebook. And so you have this situation where all of these people are saying, wow, the old internet's coming back. We're becoming more splintered. We're becoming more decentralized. Let's all go make our own websites, man. And it's like, sure, great. I like how those old websites look, and I like the fact that there's another platform that people are going to. But let's not fool ourselves here. Let's not pretend like this isn't also centralized and that this isn't part of the problem. I think, if anything, the solution to the internet would be to get off of places like that and build more and more individual looking websites, not just ones that are meant to look like carbon copies of the 90s style, but websites that are imbued with a certain vision that only you could have, those personal touches. But people aren't going to do that because they know that people are not going to visit their website. Even on NeoCities, people will visit the websites rather infrequently. The views are much less than other platforms, but at the same time, the quality of the people you're going to get is higher because they're passionate about this movement in art and communication, which was the early internet. So, yeah, I mean, if you strip it down and you create your own place independent of all of this, you're going to have even less people looking at your stuff. And unfortunately, that's a big motivator for us as humans. We're social animals, even on something as antisocial as the internet, where we're all sitting in our rooms typing on our keyboards. So, what do we do? And my answer to this whole spiel, to this current situation, the strange situation, as it were, is nothing. We can't do anything. The internet evolved. People have moved. History has marched forward. And we, the ones who have more affection and affinity for the old way of doing things, who admire the simplicity and efficiency of older school design, who would like to not use JavaScript in our websites, we're left in the dust by the masses, by the herd, which is ran collectively to that other side, which is the hyper-centralized internet. The internet is bigger than it ever was, and yet it's smaller. And we can't do anything to change that. We can try to make it bigger by making more websites, but that's basically like screaming into a void. Endlessly screaming into a void. For what? To what avail? What does that lead us to? What does that gain us? Nothing. Like, sure, it's cool. If you want to have a creative project and express yourself through a website, go ahead. Absolutely do that. By the way, go check out sofsite.com, linked in the description. But beyond that, like, if that's not your goal, don't kid yourself. Let's not fool ourselves here. Nobody is going to look at your website. And you are not going to change the paradigm. The paradigm has shifted. It has shifted away from extremely decentralized and mostly decentralized to now hyper-centralized. That is the nature of the internet now. And it is so centralized that the tech tycoons that own these businesses don't even have to run them like businesses anymore. They have so much power in their monopolization over the digital space that they can act as the modern day equivalent of feudal lords. They decide what the market wants now, rather than the market dictates what they ought to do, which is why YouTube can continuously exist in spite of the fact that it has not turned a profit since 2015. The owners of Google, the CEO of YouTube, these are feudal lords. The market does not dictate what they do. They dictate what the market is. That's how much power has been given to these people because of how centralized the internet has become, and because the internet in its current form would be nothing without these major websites calling the shots, dictating the conversation, and being our, for better or worse, homes online. That's how things are now, and it's not going to change.